And so, good morning to all of you camp followers and hopeless optimists alike as we awaken to the 100-day mark of Trump rule and its continuous flow and flourish of executive orders aimed on concentrating and consolidating power in his hands, dictating both policy and law by royal fiat. Today, I came across a very interesting article in the British Independent, one of my reliable resources for information. While most other papers and media focused on gloating about Trump's terrible crowd turnout in Michigan, this one deals with a new executive order on the use of military in U.S. domestic civilian affairs, and it covers in part what I have been warning about for months and months and months. Here's the headline and article. The executive order, and I'm quoting from it now, I'll read from it, is entitled Strengthening and Unleashing America's Law Enforcement to Pursue Criminals and Protect Innocent Civilians. Yeah. Signed by Trump at the White House on Monday, ahead of his 100th day in office on Tuesday, it instructs Pam Bondi and Hegseth to, quote, unquote, determine how military and national security assets, training, non-lethal capabilities, and personnel can be used to support domestic law enforcement. The order also establishes a legal defense mechanism for law enforcement officers accused of misconduct and threatens a crackdown on officials who prevent law enforcement officers from carrying out their duties. And that is yet another test and suggestion to persuade military and other forces to accept even his most unconstitutional orders if they believe they are protected under the law. Get it? So let's discuss, because some experts have already pointed out and warned that the latest order risks violating the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, introduced to keep the armed forces out of police matters. So, what is the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878? Well, it reads, and I'm quoting from the Act, whoever, except in cases and under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or Act of Congress, willfully uses any part of the Army or the Air Force as a posse comitatus or otherwise to execute the laws shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. The Act states. Okay, question. Can it be overcome by Trump? In fact, get trumped by other means? No bad joke intended. The answer is yes. There is case and doctrinal law that suggests it can be overcome in particular circumstances, such as if and when the president declares by proclamation that there is a national emergency, as he has done already, calling into effect the Insurrection Act, leaving aside the issues of possible introduction of martial law, which he may or may not be empowered to declare solely. It may be the military that does that. According to the Brennan Center, the Posse Comitatus Act, however, is extremely dangerous because it doesn't go far enough. It's too flimsy a guardrail. On paper, the law limits federal military participation in law enforcement, but it is undermined by an overabundance of exceptions, significant loopholes, and the lack of an effective enforcement mechanism. As a result, the principle enshrined in the Posse Comitatus Act is protected more by norms and historical practice, doctrinal practice, than by the very text of the law itself. Unfortunately, we've now entered an era in which we can no longer rely on tradition to constrain executive action. To make matters worse, the Posse Comitatus Act lacks an effective enforcement mechanism. The law is a criminal statute, yet there's no real threat of prosecution for violating it in practice. No one has ever been convicted for violating the Posse Comitatus Act, and only 2 people have ever been prosecuted in more or both more than 140 years ago. Already earlier this month, Trump authorized the military to take control of land at the country's southern border. By example, with Mexico, as part of his administration's efforts to crack down on undocumented immigration from Central America. There has been no pushback. A memorandum was sent to Hegseth, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and other members of the cabinet entitled, quote, Military Mission for Sealing the Southern Border of the United States and Repelling Invasion. That outlined the president's plan to allow American forces to take a more direct role in policing the border. And so the authoritarian dance goes on and the dangers increase daily. Please subscribe. I'd appreciate comments, analysis, criticism of what I've been saying and have to say, and I wish everybody a good day.